Hi, my name is Paige Combs, and this is my submission for oral exam 2. I'm going to do number 4, 8, and 9, but I'm going to start with 8 and 9 and then do number 4 because it's awfully long. So, number 8, explain why it's problematic to use length measuring the distance between two rays. When you're trying to measure a distance between two rays, you're trying, or the measure of an angle, you're measuring the degree of openness that angle has. And so here I have an example. The reason that we can't use length is because you see that these two angles are both measured at 45 degrees, but if we were using inches or meters or anything like that to measure this angle right here compared to this one right here, this one would be larger than that one, but they have the same amount of openness, so it would not be accurate at all if you use like inches or meters or anything like that to try and measure the degree of openness. So that's why it would be problematic to use length. Now number 9, explain what a degree is, explain what a radian is, and convert between the two. I'm going to start with the degree. Degree, the entire circumference when you're using degrees is 360 degrees. Here, if you separate it up into fourths, it will be 90 degrees. I use this as an example because you're measuring the amount of openness, and to measure the amount of openness, you can only use degrees or radians. Now, to convert this 90 degrees to radians instead, you're going to take the 90 degrees times pi. And when you times the 90 degrees times pi, you're going to get 282.74. And then when you get that number, you're going to divide it by 180, and then that will give you 1.57 or pi over 2. And that would be 90 degrees in the form of radians. So you just remember, you multiply by pi, divide by 180. And that's how you convert from degrees to radians. Now for radians, radians are the amount of times that the radius of the circle, which is half of the diameter, wraps around the entire circumference. The entire circumference concerning radians is 2 pi. The 90 degrees, just like I showed you in the other flashcard, 90 degrees is equal to 2 pi, but we're going to use this 2 pi to convert then back to degrees so that you can get an idea of them being vice versa. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this 2 pi and do the exact opposite of what we did the last time. So we're going to take 2 pi times 180, and then you get that 282.74, and then you divide by pi, and that will give you 90. So just remember, multiply by 180, then divide by pi. Finally, for number 4 is awful lengthy. Describe the method that I use to factor quadratic equations. I use a factoring method. I don't use a quadratic function or anything like that. What I do is I break it down into this setup right here, which is x plus or minus something times x plus or minus something equals 0. So you keep that. We're trying to obtain that form throughout the next 3 problems. I will show you. So first, number A, or letter A, here you have that 3x squared minus 27. What we're going to start to obtain this factored form down here, we're going to divide everything by 3. So you're going to divide the negative 27 by 3, and that will give you negative 9. Now, we're going to find the factors of this 9 right here. It would be 1 and 9 or 3 and 3. Here we're going to use 3 and 3 because we need 3 and 3 to multiply to give you this 9. So, we're going to, this negative 9, I'm sorry. We're going to then set it up in the x plus or minus 3 times x plus or minus 3. And we're trying to get this negative 9 here, so a positive 3 times a negative 3 will give you that negative 9. So we're going to do x plus 3 times x minus 3. And then down here, this is how you'll also obtain your roots. I just wrote it as a note down here. When you set these two separate and equal to 0, you will get a -3 and a 3, so that would be your roots for this quadratic equation if you were trying to find them. Next, for B, you have x squared minus 6x minus 16. So here we're going to start by finding the factors of this 16 over here. What we're going to do is we're going to find the factors that will multiply to give you a -16, but add to give you that -6, and that's what we're trying to obtain in this factored form. So that when you multiply all of this out down here, the factored form out, it will give you this exact equation. So the two factors that do that would be the 2 and the 8. So 2 and 8 multiplied together will give you 16, but subtracted would give you a -6. So we're going to plug those into our factored form, x plus or minus something times x plus or minus something. So we're going to give you the 2 and then the 8, and then we're going to determine these signs right here by the -16 and then the -6. So when you multiply the -2 times the -8, you would get the -16. So that would keep that 16 negative. And then when you add or subtract, or add them, excuse me, you would add the 2 to the -8, and that would still give you the -6. So we're trying to obtain this factored form. And when you multiply this out here, you get this. And here again is the roots set up equal to 0. That's how you would find your roots. Roots of this equation would be x equals -2 and x equals 8. Finally, for the last one, we have 2x squared minus 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. And here we're trying to find the exact factored form, x plus or minus something times x plus or minus something, so that when you multiply this out, you get this exact equation. So here we're going to find the factors of 12. You're going to get 12 and 1, 2 and 6, or 4 and 3. Here we're going to use 4 and 3, and I'll show you why. And also, we can't, like we did in the other one, we can't divide 2 by everything, because you still want this in like a nice, neat equation, so that when you multiply it all out, it will give you this exact quadratic function up here as well. So you're going to do 2x plus or minus something times 2x plus, or times x plus or minus something. And here we're going to use 4 and 3. And then when you multiply a +3 and a -4, you get the 12. And so here I'll show you why. So when you do 2x, and you do 2x times x, you get that x squared. And then you multiply this again by the -4. So 2x times -4, that will give you -8x. And then here, +3 times x be plus 3x, and then the 3 and the 4 will give you that -12. So -12. So here we have 2x minus 8x plus 3x minus 12. And here what you're going to do is you're going to combine like terms, so the x's here, so -8x plus 3x will give you that -5x. And that is how you factor quadratic equations.